a lot of things can go wrong. We identified 3 different things that can go wrong. The first one is that we're putting wrong data into the system, or the data we're putting in the system does not belong to a valid employee, maybe a fake employee. Likewise, the data of X staff can be left in the system, or the fraudulent change of Xnet data is not also inevitable. So we need to put control in place to ensure all of that are not crystallizing. The second stage of the process, once we have correct data, is to start working. The staff will start working, right? And when you start working, we need to put in the number of hours the guy has worked in the payroll system, because that's how we're going to calculate how much to pay him. So the second stage of the process is to impute actual hours worked. Actual hours worked into this payroll system. And what could go wrong? What could go wrong is easy. Wrong hours. We pay for wrong hours. So employees are paid for wrong hours. That is what could go wrong. Either they are paid more than they worked or less than they work. Employees are paid for wrong hours. That is what could go wrong. And our objective is to ensure that employees are only paid for hours worked. So to ensure. And it looks so simple now, but you need to practice and try and create this table all by yourself to ensure that employees are only paid for hours worked. That is the control objective. And how do we make sure that this comes to reality? So we need to check the interface where those number of hours are put into the system. The best way is to use an automated system whereby employees clock in and clock out. And when they clock in and clock out, they are also monitored, because people can clock in for their friends and clock out for their friends. So we need to ensure that the employee is using their own card to clock in. The best thing is to probably be using biometric means, or not so many companies will be able to achieve that. Right? So the most prevalent way is people use their access card or staff ID card to clock in. And in that case, I can give my friend my staff card and say, I'm not coming to work today. Let me clock in. Then when you are leaving, clock out for yourself and clock out for me as well, so that they will think I've worked for 8 hours today. In that case, you'll be paying for hours not worked, right? And work control you need to put in place. We need to monitor that area. Either we put a security man there that ensures that people are only clocking with their own ID card, or we put a CCTV that is monitoring the area to ensure that nobody is clocking in twice, right? So the control will be that clock in and clock out should be monitored. Yeah, and like I said, can be monitored either physically by a human or logically. And when we say logically, we are using computer, so maybe like CCTV, right, to do that. That will prevent people from clocking in for their friends. And if we are using timesheet, which means people go on Excel to put in the number of hours they've worked. Such timesheet, before it gets into the payroll system, must be approved by their manager. So timesheet and any overtime. Yeah, because some people say they add overtime as well. They will put it in the timesheet. But both of them must be approved by the manager. Must be approved by staff manager. Until it's approved by the manager, you can start talking of paying those hours. So what auditors need to do for this one is to just observe that process to see how they are clocking in and clocking out. So observe clock in or clock out process. Be sure that someone is monitoring it or there is CCTV monitoring staff. And likewise for timesheet, excuse me, I thought just need to sample some timesheets and look for approval. So check for approval of manager. That is it for the input of actual number of hours into the system. Right. Now it's time for computer to calculate the payroll, and that's the next stage. Is that salaries are calculated by payroll system, as payroll computer. And yeah, what could go wrong? Very unlikely, extremely unlikely, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible, because you could have cyber attacks, you can have all sorts of things happening. So there can still be error by the computer. It's narrows, very unlikely, but we can't rule it out. So there might be error in the calculation by the system. It is not impossible, it's just that it's unlikely. But it doesn't mean that you rule it out. So our control objective is to ensure that payroll is accurately calculated. That is our control objective. Yeah. And how do we manage this? Normally, we will expect computer to calculate this 100% accurate, but if there is an issue, we must find a way to detect that error. And the major way to do this is to always ask computer to generate. So the system will generate, must go every month, because you run payroll on a monthly basis, right? So system generates exception report. Exception report are reports that is not in line with your normal expectation. So the system knows what is normal and the system knows what is abnormal. Take, for instance, people normally work for 40 hours in a week. If someone is paid for more than 40 hours, that should fall into an exception report. If someone was paid £40,000 last month, and this month is being paid £85,000, that should come in as an exception report, because your salary is expected to be the same every month, reasonably. So when it is significantly different, then it should come into exception report, such that somebody can investigate and be sure that, oh, it's because you are promoted, or is it because of one reason or the other that is valid. Yeah. So system generate exception report, and it doesn't end there. Generating the report doesn't add any value except it is reviewed. And this is reviewed by payroll manager can review it, or a director. Usually, what director is doing, a manager can also do it. Depends on the size of the company, right? So it's reviewed by the manager or director to justify or identify error. So it's either the exception is an error or it is justifiable, which means it's valid, right? So it's very important that that is being reviewed by the manager or the director. What does auditor needs to do? Straightforward. Auditor needs to just get some samples of exception report and see that they were actually reviewed and cleared by the HR director. So auditors will sample some exception reports. And check that they are reviewed and cleared by the HR director. That is it. It's about the exception report and clearing it accordingly. Now, salary has been calculated. We need to pay. So employees are paid. That is the real essence of this process. We want to pay employees. So that's the last stage. Employees are paid. And you already know what can go wrong, because I'm sure if you are listening to this, you must have worked somewhere before and you don't want to experience shortfall in payment. Maybe if they overpay you, you are happy. But whether you are being overpaid or underpaid is still a risk. None of that should be happening. So the risk is that employees don't receive their payment. Now, at this last stage, the whole thing has been calculated already. Imagine everything has gone on well. The data is correct. The hours in the put in the system is correct. The salary has been calculated correctly. Now, what is the next thing that can go wrong? The next thing that can go wrong is that, yes, it's been calculated, but I didn't receive my salary. One way or the other, anything can happen. So our control objective is to ensure that staff receive their salaries. That is our objective. And how do we ensure that is done? Very easy. All we need to ensure is that we use bank transfer. So staff are paid by bank transfer. Bank transfer. Yeah. That is the best thing and it's a good control. However, like I said earlier, some company will still pay by cash. So if you are using cash, you need to have the following controls. Number one, you need to store that cash safely. You have to lock it up in a safe with password or with whatever code system, your combination lock you want to use. But it has to be properly saved in any company if you are paying cash. And beyond that, you need to find a way to be able to tell that the staff has truly been paid. Remember, if you have made a transfer, even if the employee comes back and say, I didn't receive my money, you can print bank statement. You can go to the bank of that employee and validate. But if you pay cash, how do you argue with the staff if the staff comes back and say, I did not get my salary? It's by ensuring that they sign when they collect the cash. So the control is that staff must sign. That's very important when they collect the cash. So they must sign. But that's evidence that you cannot come back and deny that you were not paid. Yeah. And also, as much as SOD is important at every stage, remember when I spoke about segregation of duty in my previous videos, it's about one person not starting and completing a process. Even in this cash is very critical. Yeah. You can't have the same person putting the number of hours in the system and it's that same person that is paying the cash. That means that person will be inflating the hours so that he will be collecting the cash at the back end and just be giving the staff the actual one that the staff should get. So, very critical here. You must practice SOD. And that is ensure that different person different person, puts the actual hours in the system and payment of cash is made by another person. So different people must do these two things. Extremely important. Yeah. And now we'll auditor test. Auditors can just sample stuff and collect evidence of bank transfer. That can also be visible in the bank statement of the company. Yeah, this one, auditor needs to visit the storage site. Visit the storage site and ensure it's safe. Yeah. This one as well, auditors will sample stuff and check for staff signature for salary payment. And for SOD, anytime you want to test SOD as an auditor, you have to interview staff in payroll department. Then check that no single staff can put actual hours and pay cash to staff. Very important, and that is it for payroll process. The next video I'll go into a question, and remember, keep liking it, keep sharing it, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and put comments as much as you like.